Thank you for joining us in today's episode of the RSIF podcast, Voices in Engineering. Today I'm joined by Terry Mcmenam, a chartered scientist, environmentalist and director of a leading site investigation firm, Geol Consultants. We explore the most commonly asked questions from clients, attitudes towards ground investigations, and how to manage the risks of shallow mine owners. Happy listening. So, Terry, welcome to the RSIF podcast. RSIF and Geol Consultants. Me and you share a tragic passion of supporting Newcastle United.
You certainly do.
We do, yes. However, can we get our podcast started with some introductory facts about yourself, but also on your company that you represent, Geol Consultants, please?
No problem at all, Kevin. Terry Mcmenam from Geol Consultants. Just approaching me 28th year in the geotechnical and environmental industry.
Can I pause you there, Terry?
Yeah, of course.
Can I pause you there? Do you use Just for Men? Because you are one of the youngest looking professionals I know in this field. And what other products would you recommend? You don't need to name brands, but you're one of the youngest looking professionals in this field I've ever worked with. And that's a compliment.
When I did have hair, no, I didn't. Use Just for Men. But I know some people who do, and yes, I think they're highly recommended. But the older I'm getting, I'm starting to show a few sunroofs, things like that. You know, the cracks are starting to appear. But
yes.
It happens to the best of us, shall we say.
It's a stressful industry we work in, and I'm sure we both share that. Sorry for interjecting.
No. It was a very valid question. But yes. So, Geol Consultants, anyway. I mean, I've been in the industry, like I say, I'm approaching my 28th year now. Started in 1992. Been around the block a bit. I'm now at Geol Consultants, which are a diverse team of highly qualified and experienced professionals, consisting of geotechnical engineers, geo-environmental engineers, geologists, and land surveyors. We provide a professional approach to solving a wide range of geotechnical and environmental problems, ranging from locating abandoned mine entities and old coal workings through to providing foundation design, soil and groundwater contamination risk assessments, and hazardous ground gas risk assessments. That's pretty much us in a nutshell. Effectively, Geol Consultants today are 12 months old. Mm-hmm. Although we've been operating for 20 years or so, just as a small, dedicated drilling contractor. So we've come on a lot since I came across 12 months ago.
Just give the audience and listeners a feel for in terms of spread nationally. Are you just a regional business, or do you look at work right across the UK?
We work right across the UK.
So may I start by asking, and for the benefit of the audience, just give us a rough idea of some commonly asked questions pre-start, pre-build on a project.
Well, to be honest, the engagement normally starts with, we've got this site, we're looking to build residential properties or it's industrial. Can you give us an idea of the likely ground conditions? Have you done anything nearby? And what the fees would be for investigating the site thoroughly so we can develop the site safely. Mm-hmm. They're the general initial questions that come through with any inquiry.
Do you find that there is an appetite for understanding the ground at an early stage of development planning from clients?
Without a doubt. I mean, to be honest, a lot of our work comes in via architects, consultant engineers who themselves have got a lot of experience in terms of what they're likely to find in terms of the ground conditions and what they need from a site investigation. So a lot of the time, the clients are pretty much well educated before they come to us. Mm-hmm. And from my point of view, I think what I like to do from an early outset is just be completely honest and upfront. A lot of the times I'll probably talk myself out of work, but I think it comes back round at another time. I think, the occasional single plot developer might come and say, I've been told I need some boreholes for this site. Potentially there's some shallow coal workings below the site. Mm-hmm. And normally, depending on who he's gone to, somebody might not question that information and just give him a price for some deep boreholes. I would always question the information and get a gauge on what the ground conditions are going to be like. And if I think the information that you've been provided is wrong, I will tell them that. And, like I say, quite often I do talk myself out of work, but I think it's the professional way to be. If I was a developer, I would want to be speaking to somebody who isn't just in it for the money.
Do you think that the appetite for spending money on site investigation is becoming commonly accepted? Because it's always been something in our industry that's been undervalued.
I think you're right, Kevin. I think it still is. It hasn't changed much over the years. I think it's driven by the local authorities now. I think if the local authorities hadn't gotten to grips with, their planning policies and what have you, I think many developments would be going ahead without a site investigation. People are very, very reluctant to pay for site investigation. And I keep telling people, you pay for a site investigation whether or not you get one from the start. It's as simple as that.
We get involved both with you guys up front, as you know, but also sadly sometimes when things have gone wrong and things need to be fixed.
Yeah.
And ordinarily you want to avoid that for obvious reasons because the costs go up.
Exactly.
Access restrictions, you've got to work around services or whatever the challenges may face, but that costs more in the long run. Can we talk a little bit about shallow mine workings? It's been a passion of mine for many, many years.
It's a passion of mine as well, to be honest. I think, it's the type of investigation work that kind of gets me going in terms of, I don't know if excitement's the right word, but I still get excited about certain projects, particularly where there's complex ground conditions.
You get a real appreciation of what legacies left in the ground by our ancestors when you get called out to some of these properties with issues or
definitely
with issues. I think in terms of appreciation for mine workings, the treatment or the location of mine workings, both mine shafts and shallow mine workings, it's definitely a specialist industry that's becoming smaller and smaller in terms of understanding. We can see that from a contractor level, but can you say it yourself from a consultancy level, Terry?
Yes. I think, in my time in the industry, there's been quite a few recessions, and I think back in sort of 2007, 8, 9, there was a lot of experience left the industry for one reason or another. And I think the universities bringing people through into the industry now, I don't think there's that much awareness in terms of shallow coal workings and, the legacy that's been left behind. I think, again, the Coal Authority have tightened up a lot. And with them now being involved in planning, it kind of make you aware from the start if you're in a coal mining area, a risk area, whether it's a low risk or high development risk area.
Yeah, we've noticed an increase in activity level from the Coal Authority, and it's welcomed. I think it's a positive. It's definitely a positive for everyone involved.
Definitely.
But we, similar to the comment about the site investigation, we get involved at the latter stages of a job if it's not been thought through thoroughly. And again, that is an expensive mistake to make if the ground's not been treated, the mine workings have not been treated in advance.
Yeah.
We've got one now in the system, and it's certainly something that needs to be considered very early in the planning stages.
I mean, one thing I would say is, starting in the industry in 1992, I don't think I'd ever seen a rotary borehole put down until about 95, 96. That might seem hard to believe. But the awareness certainly wasn't around as much back then when I think about it. But post 96, I think a lot of areas like the West Yorkshire, Newcastle, Northumberland, consideration was made with regards to whether there was an issue in terms of shallow coal mining.
What do you think changed?
I actually think probably a little bit of research, a little bit of internal research on projects. Again, desktop studies, assessing historical maps. For the smaller companies where I came from, that type of thing didn't really happen in the earlier day. And it wasn't until about 95, 96 when that started occurring. So I think it all came together as part of the desk-based assessment, even though desk studies were always done years and years ago. But going back to the point that it's all about value for money and things like that, clients probably weren't prepared to pay for that back then.
What are the first things to look out for when you initially take that inquiry and you look to develop a strategy for investigating the ground?
Well, you want to know straight away, look, what's the past history of this site? What's been on there before? Has it been used for industrial activity? Has there been a gasworks on there? So that's the first thing that springs to mind, right? Okay, how can we tailor our investigation to tick all the boxes to make sure that the end user is going to be safe to live on that land once the land's developed? So once you've looked at the historical plans, you look at all the geological records, any available BGS records that's online, your own knowledge of doing sites maybe next door in the area, everything comes into play. To be fair, as part of the pricing aspect of the work, you're almost doing a full desktop study anyway, because like I said from the off, I like to be honest and upfront. So basically, any fee proposal that we put together, that is the absolute maximum that the client would pay, in my opinion, because we should know everything about the site before we get there. This is the occasional thing when you do the ground investigation that you can't foresee, like, for example, you might have elevated levels of arsenic, you don't know where they came from. But you should know just about everything there is to know about that site before you get on site. Anything you find after that is just something that you would never know until you put the hole in the ground.
Do you feel that because a customer doesn't see what we do, i.e. everything is subterranean underground, that there is a bit of a blind approach to risk and what those risks could manifest into?
Yes, initially. But I think it's like anyone, once they educate a little bit, I think they see it, they see the bigger picture. The problem I see is they might go around the houses in terms of they've already been to 2 consultants and then I'm the third. Sometimes if I'm giving them more honest advice, it's almost like, well, am I trying to get a little bit more money out of them? Some may say it that way, but to be fair, like I say, I would rather be honest and upfront. I'm not one of these where I like to get my feet under the table and then say, oh, by the way, we've done the investigation work you could do with some rotary boreholes for coal mining. I like to get all that on the table before we even engaged in any investigation. And I see it far too often where there's potentially others out there that don't do that, rightly or wrongly.
Yeah. Is that, do you think, maybe a difference in an approach to risk management on a site investigation?
I think so, yeah.
By others.
Yeah.
So how do you take risk into your design of a site investigation and then present that to the customer? Do you want to give us?
Well, again, I just make sure that I look into everything thoroughly, without blowing my own trumpet. 9 times out of 10, if I'm predicting what depth rockhead is, what strength the clays are going to be, how much made ground you're going to have, I'm almost there, from a desk base to when we actually put something in the ground. And that's just experience.
Yeah. Where I'm going to it is, I think we, as an industry, have a little bit more work to do to get buy-in from our customers, because we see it. We're always the guys who have to deliver the foundation. Yeah. So if the site investigation, from our point of view, is not adequate, and we're installing piles for a logistics centre, or we're grouting redundant mine workings that haven't been accurately found, or the scale or type has been described correctly, then we ultimately end up with the risk as a contractor. So what I'm looking to really try and get out of this conversation is, if anything, a bit more awareness that spending a little bit more in advance of a project, going to site for the permanent works, will save the customer more money in the long run.
It certainly will. It's a difficult balancing act, because, I mean, like I say, going back to the start of the conversation, a lot of people are looking to spend money on site investigation to start with, so it's trying to maximise the information we can give a client based on their funds available, if you like.
So, to lighten the mood, what's your best project you've been involved with?
I've been involved in that many, to be honest, Kevin. I'd say in the earlier years, I think it was probably the time when I met yourself, 2002, I think. You'll have been fresh out of university, maybe.
21 years old.
Yes.
22 years old. 22 years old. I was young and handsome then.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but you were young. Does that tie in roughly when you first started?
I started in this industry in the year 2000.
Right.
October 2000.
It might have been 2001 then, but we had a large PFI skill project. We had over 50 schools in Bradford.
Of course.
Yes. That's where we... because we were doing a lot, obviously, Bradford, West Yorkshire, lots of shallow coal mining. So, I think looking back, because I was, bloody hell, I'll have to do the maths here. I'll have been 20, 21. So, that was a great project for myself. I learned a hell of a lot. I was on my own. I was totally independent. Pretty much living in Bradford for 6 months.
That was when we were just going from school to school to school. High amount of dumper rates.
There was a lot of organisation to be done, because I had to get the schools before they opened at 8 o'clock. Then we had to work around all those kids coming in, the play times and all sorts. And to be honest, we couldn't leave, even if we'd finished the works, we couldn't leave the school sites until after all the kids had gone. It was a logistical nightmare. But looking back, I think I've got a lot out of that from a personal point of view.
Terry, we'll leave the conversation regarding our professionalism. We'll step into the world of quickfire questions, and we'll start off with, can you tell us, what was your first job?
Well, my first job was at Dunelm Drilling.
I thought you might have said paper boy or... Well,
to be fair, I was a paper lad. I was a paper lad. Started my paper around at 11-year-old. Only finished it last year, to be honest. 11 until about 15, 16. And but in terms of the industry, to be fair, I was 16 when I started Dunelm.
That's really good. What's your favourite album?
To be honest, I'm a Manchester fan. To be honest, all the music I used to listen to, even now, originates probably from Manchester. Happy Mondays are my favourite, so my favourite album's got to be Bills and Thrills and Bellyaches. I go to see Sean Ryder Bears in the band every year, obviously apart from this year because it's been put on hold, even though they weren't touring this year for some strange reason.
Can I tell you a little story I've got about that?
Aye.
So I go snowboarding. I like snowboarding. One year we went just before Christmas. It was 2004, just after I met you. We were in Val d'Isère just before Christmas, and it was a terrible week for conditions. In fact, we only snowboarded one day out of 6. And one night I was in a bar called Dick's Tea Bar with all my friends, doing what you do as a 20-year-old lad in the Alps.
Mm-hmm.
And out of nowhere, Bez arrived.
As he does.
And proceeded to stay with us all night. And he spent a lot of time talking to me, repeating the same thing over and over again about how much he loves his kids. So yeah, that was my experience, one and only experience of meeting Bez. Have you met him in person before?
I have, yes, I have. I haven't met Sean, I've met Bez a couple of times. To be honest, like I say, they always come to the Auto Academy at Newcastle every year. Mm-hmm. Stop in the same hotel as them. I've had breakfast with a guitarist, and to be honest, it's the one thing I'm going to miss about 2020. To be honest, it's kind of the yearly thing I look forward to. But to be fair, I mean, I love Oasis. Been to see them a few times. What's the Story with Morning Glory was probably up there with my favourite albums. To be honest, music is my life. I love it. Listen to everything from gangster rap through to reggae, through to obviously Happy Mondays, all that type of stuff.
It's an eclectic blend, Terry. Right. Unlike me, ABBA, and I think that's about it. No, I'm joking. You can't steal my thunder on the next question, so I'll tell you what my favourite films are: Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters 2 and Blues Brothers. They're my top three. Don't pinch them. They're special to me. Tell the audience, so what is your favourite film, or even give us the top three if you build enough like I've
Well, to be honest, I can list. I haven't got a favourite film, but I've got actors that I absolutely adore, obviously. My favourite film, Scarface. Okay. Carlito's Way, Untouchables, Cape Fear, Taxi Driver.
There's a theme here.
Sorry?
There's a theme here.
There is, yeah. De Niro, Pacino. And I also like New Jack City. That's kind of slightly different, but that's one of my favourites. Purely because Ice-T's in there, and Ice-T's one of my all-time favourite rappers.
Again, I'll pick on the word eclectic, Terry. We're getting to see a different side of site investigation this morning.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
So what we'll do now is we'll just draw to a bit of a conclusion. And by doing so, what we'll do is finish off on a question. What is your best moment of your career so far? Right. And you mustn't say this podcast. It's from before this.
No, to be honest, the best moment of my career, simply because I did it the unconventional way, was when I got my degree. Okay. Basically, I done my degree part-time while I was working at Dunelm. Paid for it myself, done it outside of working hours. Never saw the wife and kids for 6 years. Took the 6 year. Basically, I was doing coursework 2-3 o'clock in the morning, getting up for work 5 or 6. But to be honest, looking back, it is the best achievement. I managed to get first class honours without any help. My son was born in the October I started in the September. My son Trent, he was born in the October, so he was literally, I was a month into the degree when he was born. And when I finished, he was 6 years old. And to be honest, those 6 years, I've probably lost out a little bit with my son. It hasn't affected us, but it's the highlight of my career.
That's a really touching story, Terry. Yeah. Okay, we're going to wrap up there. Thank you very much for your interesting conversation this morning.
Been a pleasure, really Kevin. Been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Arslift podcast, Voices in Engineering. If you've enjoyed this episode, head over to our website, www.arslift.co.uk, to discover all about who we are and how we work with our valued clients. Never miss an update on a new episode when you subscribe to our podcast feed. If you found value in our conversations, we'd also appreciate a follow on LinkedIn.